Well, our guest today is King's Kaleidoscope. They're one of our favorite Christian bands who are constantly experimenting and pushing the mold on what Christian music can and should sound like. We sat down with Chad Gardner to hear about their new intimate project called Modern Psalms, and he opened up about how King's Kaleidoscope is trying to be a refuge for anyone wrestling with their faith. Here's Emily's conversation with King's Kaleidoscope.
Well, I'm really excited to talk to you about this Modern Songs project you're dropping today, which I've seen you describe as an immersive virtual performance. And the first thing I want to know is, what exactly does a King's Kaleidoscope immersive virtual performance entail?
Well, basically King's Kaleidoscope, the last 2 years, we released 2 full-length albums and did 2 national tours. And so this was our quote unquote down cycle year. It was like, we need to find something fun and creative to do. And our manager has always said, why don't you do an acoustic tour? Your band is so big, you do these huge bombastic shows, and like, why don't you do something acoustic? And I've always said, like, there's no way that's what you do when you're like washed up and you do songs and stories tours. And I refuse. And I said, the only way I'd ever do that if it was just me, an acoustic guitar, and an LED wall and like video. And so another guy on our team was like, you know, listening to this, and he's like, our other kind of operations guy, JJ, he said, hey, there's a lot of 5 overhead projectors from the University of Washington Art Department on Craigslist for $200. What if we mess with these? And that's all it took to get me creatively inspired to have a new playground for 2024. And so literally, like, I'm pretty visually inspired. And so we got these overhead projectors and started thinking like, wow, you can put like prisms in front of them, and you can, like, what if we built motors on them with my robotics engineer of a cousin. We put these motors on them, and we're printing 20-foot long scrolls of overhead transparencies, you know, and like doing all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, now an acoustic show built around this sort of creative outlet is much more of an immersive visual experience. It's a little bit more, has like a sort of a performance art element to it, because we ended up, you know, using 3 musicians on stage, everything stripped down, super minimal. And we have a 4th person, my friend Zach, who's, you know, he's performing all these visuals on these old school overhead projectors. And the whole thing was just a fun experiment. We said, let's just play a few shows on the West Coast and for fun, basically. And by the last show, which was at the House of Blues in Anaheim, I thought, like, this is a top like 3 or 5 show of my life. This is so much fun. This is so different. There was so much contemplative space in this show. The performances, we kept like just working on stuff. We'd finish a show and be like, oh, what if we did this with the projectors instead? Or really, it was like what we wanted to play with in a down cycle year. And it I think because we had that attitude with it, it just has so much life and playfulness. And we created our own little contemplative, quiet, there's a lot of space in it show, and it just worked. So that's a long answer. I'm giving you the whole deal here. But basically, you know, after playing the shows and them working and the experiment working, we, right before Christmas, before the end of the year, when it was kind of still fresh for us, we filmed it. We filmed a live performance of it. And because it's not a tour we were going to take, you know, all around the world or anything, we're doing a live stream with it to just give people the opportunity to kind of come to our playground with us.
As you were putting this together, was there maybe like a narrative or a message that you were wanting to convey to the audience?
I wouldn't say we have a story to convey, like a narrative per se. I think, you know, as I said at the beginning, we were coming off of back-to-back years of big tours and full-length album releases. So what naturally happens after that is there's a lot of like self-reflection and a lot of thought to, all right, what are we actually doing here? Because we're not in the busyness or the kind of tornado of releasing music and touring. And I think we had a lot of conversations this year about what actually is King's Kaleidoscope for people, and our little niche band. Like, what are we bringing to the world, and like, what is it that we do naturally, and how do we kind of define it? And that's where the modern Psalms language, we started using that language internally, and I think it's because I was a worship director and I was arranging hymns for church, and a lot of people found out about us because I was doing that. But as soon as we started writing our own songs, I started writing a lot of songs that were, they're basically psalms. They're prayers. They're frustrated sometimes they're more like praise oriented. But we've never, for as worshipful as a band as King's Kaleidoscope is, outside of a few hymn arrangements before we were writing our own music, we've never really written songs that churches can sing. So what is that? It's like a very worshipful focus, but it's very personal. And I think that's what reading Psalms feels like. And so we just started using this phrase this year, modern Psalms. And so when we were rating the catalog for what acoustic songs to do, it felt like, oh, we're really presenting lyrics more than wild musicality. And we're really presenting these, each one of these songs sort of own perspective and just place where I was at with faith or prayer or whatever it is, just kind of, on its own without a lot of bells and whistles. So a lot of that modern Psalms language, it just comes from us trying to understand what we've been doing the last 10 years. Our band turned 10 this year. We celebrated our 10-year anniversary of like releasing albums. And so that was also causing us a lot of reflection time.
So you mentioned that last year King's Kaleidoscope was kind of reflecting on its purpose. And I'm curious, did that time of reflection change anything for you? Like, is King's going to be doing something different over the next 10 years or what?
All right. So this is one I don't know. I don't really know what to say here, except for this is kind of funny. So I went and saw, our team went and watched like the Elevation worship show. And I was like pleasantly very, very surprised. I was like, wow, okay, this feels like pretty dialed in the ways that I thought personally I would really not enjoy it. And we were on our way back home, we were thinking, okay, King's Kaleidoscope show feels very worshipful a lot of ways, but this is a different thing. And so what's like the difference? And the difference between an Elevation worship church or Elevation, stadium show and a King's Kaleidoscope club show is that I think everybody in the Elevation audience loves church. And I would say maybe half of the audience in the King's show loves church. And so like you're saying, what's for the next 10 years? I don't know how to answer that, but I know that immediately we have realized that our audience is resonating with these psalm type songs that we create very naturally, that are about faith, that are to God, that are conversations with God. They resonate really deeply with them. But this is an audience that there's a large part of it that wants nothing to do with church and really feels out of place and has a hard time with it, which is fine. Church is a very complicated topic. But immediately my thought has been in sort of this like burden that keeps coming back to me is, what can King's Kaleidoscope do in the next season that sort of serves those people in a way that a church would without being a church? Like, can they come to a King's Kaleidoscope show in 2025 and it be something that's spiritually just beneficial, and like can we be used in the way that these people really need us to be used? Like, I'm fumbling on my words here, but King's Kaleidoscope has an audience of people that want to worship and can't find a church where they can do it at. And so I want to be able to design a tour in this next season that helps facilitate that in some way.
It's interesting that you feel like half your audience is in this sort of theologically wrestling space. Do you feel like you've intentionally tried to make music for that community, or why do you think that they're connecting with you so much?
Well, back to that difference of what it feels like to be at a like major worship event. There's such a clear purpose at those things, which is everybody is coming in there knowing the songs. Those are the songs they sing at their churches, every Sunday, and they're there to worship in a very specific way. And I think it's actually really beautiful. But the King's Kaleidoscope audience, because it maybe is more, doesn't know what it thinks about church or maybe God, it's a little bit more of they're coming to a show to witness me wrestle with faith through the lyrics and the psalmy type stuff that I'm singing. And I think they may resonate with that, and there's worshipful points in that. But I think because the door is cracked open a little bit more where they can just kind of watch me wrestle through faith, that's a different thing than everybody, we're going to sing this right now to God. When somebody might not be ready to, they don't know what they think. But if they can witness me kind of pour out my heart to God in a lot of different ways, I think that just creates space for an audience that is just on a different part of the discipleship path, But I kind of just still see everybody as on the same, like everybody's on the path, Like if you desire to know God in a way, or even if you're curious, it like puts you on the path, you know what I mean? But it might not be the place where you're like walking in the church door because and the service is like, raging. But you might go to a King's show or put on a King's album because it's just a little further ahead from where that more congregational element is.
I wonder, but I want you more. Infinity is just the floor. No matter what I'm searching for.
That was King's Kaleidoscope. Make sure to check out their new intimate project. It's called Modern Psalms.